Prep time is up. So welcome to the grand final of Haruti 2018. On ground we have feature A. On opposition we have lot A. And as the honorable chair we have Chikara Nogami. We have 赤井さん、栗田さん、マークさん、三石さん、本木さん、榎本さん、メガさん、ピーターさん。The motion will be middle one. Without further ado, I call the Prime Minister to open case in the
I'm really nervous now. So I'm honored to be here with Showa and Jamie. So thank you for you guys. I'm kind of kabanzame here, but I will do my best and let's bring the win to Iju. Yes. Okay. Next year, we believe tons of signs before someone committing a crime. There are tons of signs before someone committing a crime. By using the sign, we can dramatically reduce the crime. That's what we want to see by taking this motion. I have two arguments here. Firstly, in our problem, what we can achieve the safety of society, which includes and it will increase the model. And secondly, the justification why we can prioritize the safety over the privacy of individuals. So move on to my first argument. So let's talk about how we can use that information. So we use all kinds of information. For example, security camera or history of search of internet or the PC. So we will gather these kind of information and connect these kind of data, and we can search the possibility of crime. Yes, we will calculate the possibility of crime. That is the accuracy we say. And the information we gather won't be distorted and won't do human error. And it's not the biased information, right? So that is that is how agency works, and we will protect the security of individuals, and only we will use that information to only the purpose of the policy or only for the purpose, and that information would not be exploited or not be sold to the company in the society, right? So that is the model. So what happened by taking this motion? So we were not saying that punishing them, no thank you. Not saying punish them. And it's just what we are saying is just leading them not to commit the crime, right? So for example, when someone reading manga about the chikan in the convenience store, and then he left the convenience store and see the woman's head really carefully, and in those emotional things, temporary things, situation, someone will in the agency will go to him and make him calm down and yes, that is temporary thing. So hey, just calm down, right? So in this situation, what he is doing is not the crime, but the potentially to the crime, right? So we can avoid that person to commit the actual chikan, right? So that is what we say. And secondly, more importantly, the evil thing. If the person want to do evil thing, will do things more. For example, the someone who searching the Amazon about the bombing, and he buy the material about the bombings on Amazon, and some helmet guy will into the one house. So in those situations, in those evil situations, we will require them to go to the mental counseling once a week or twice a week, or do more radical things or so. So, but the important thing is that what they are doing is not yet committing a crime actually, but having the potential to commit the crime. So we will their freedom would be protected. So we will not imprisonment them. Yes, so the important thing is that there are always a potential, there are always signs before someone committing a crime, so we can gather that kind of information, and we can dramatically solve the crime or the possibility to the crime. Okay.
Do you support rampant capture of black kids in order to reduce crime preemptively in a circumstance when this kind of technology is not existing?
No. That is not what we want to do. Only when those black kids, for example, would show some signs to do the high possibility to commit the crime, we will take that kind of solution, right? Yes. So by taking this motion, because the root cause of the crime will be reduced, we can reduce the crime, which can potentially avoid, right? So that is what we think it brings benefit to society, right? So let's talk about the justification in a second. So okay. So we believe there is no absolute right? So sometimes there exists the trade-off between privacy and security, right? So someone might say privacy is always important, but we don't think so, right? So no one care about it because when your life is in danger, right? So in those situations, for example, as we can see from the example that the bombing, like for example, you will be killed by bombing in 30 minutes, and the police can enter that loop, and in those situations, the privacy of the owner of the house would be absolutely intimate. But it is allowed now. So because you can protect yourself, not the security, not the big things, we can prioritize those clear harm from by taking this motion. So in order to protect clear security of society, best to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. Next I call the leader of the Bushel from Moscow to lead the debate.
マイクなしでやりたいんですけど聞こえますか？ Big Brother is watching you. Apparently that's what's needed in order to stop the crimes that they said exist and we can't catch right now. I did not see from the government side where this crime that can only be caught with Big Brother watching you everywhere constantly can catch. I do not see why bathrooms need to be violated. The autonomy of the individual to present oneself, the dignity of oneself can be violated because bathrooms are apparently 30 minutes away from a bomb, right? We don't see on our side of the house the validity of this policy to violate the fundamental identity and the dignity of the individual and to hand over immense power to authority to exploit individuals and the citizens who cannot, as a result, pursue happiness. We're very happy to oppose. I'm going to talk about two things. Number one, I am going to talk about the psychological violence that this policy brings about and how privacy cannot be assured in this specific circumstance. Secondly, we're going to talk about the power given to the state and how that power can be abused and exploited to push down on political dissidents, opponents, stuff like that. But before that, let me engage with the case coming from the government side. As I told you earlier, we don't see where the crime is that needs to be caught using this, right? Chika doesn't happen because it's not like not all people who read manga about chika do chika precisely because people have morality, right? They're taught to respect other people and their bodies. Secondly, they do understand that in the event that they are caught, they're not sure of that, they will be caught and they will be punished. So even without constant fear of being caught, even without constant police oversight and catching, you still have that mechanism of calculating risks of getting caught. So we don't understand the necessity coming from their side of the house. If we're especially talking about things like bigger crimes, like terrorism, that sort of thing doesn't really come up in actions, but rather the incentives of the individuals, that is to say, calculation of what happens in their mind. So we don't really see if it's not petty crime that they can solve, but it's not severe crime they can solve. Where is the crime that they want to solve and cannot be solved now, right? Moving on to my argument. We're talking about the psychological violence. Mass surveillance of all crimes means that even in the most petty, even in the most private spaces, there needs to be surveillance. That includes your bathroom, that includes your bedroom, that probably includes, I don't know, even public spaces like churches, religious institutions, cultural institutions where you need privacy. This is irregardless of whether a crime might happen there or not, because any space, regardless of whether a 30-minute bomb is away, can be an area of potential crime. At the point at which the motion says prevent all crimes, that necessarily means that cameras are always there. No, thank you. And people, as human beings, as animals who have moralities and values, do things that are seen as not illegal, but shameful to society, morally wrong, or something that you just don't want to show other people. Who would want to show you having sex to police, right? Who would want to show you, like, I don't know, jacking yourself off in front of the police, stuff like that. Especially when we're talking about sex or bathing or nudity, people just don't want other people to see that. And there's extreme harm when that does occur. Why? Because it strips the autonomy of the individual, the self, to present oneself in a good light as possible, right? Because people have the right to look like they are the good versions of themselves, right? That's why we don't ban makeup, even though, I don't know, like putting no makeup probably means better you, like more real you or anything, right? In this specific circumstance, we say the ability of showing yourself in a better light is one form of expression of your identity. The freedom of expression that does no harm to others. Why are you going to strip that away. Second level of analysis. Human beings as animals have an instinctual fear of being seen all the time. We all feel instinctually fearful because as animals, we don't want to have others look at us and criticize us any time of day because you want to respect yourself, you have pride in yourself. This means that constantly you are in an instinctual, irrational point of fear, shame, and guilt at the point in which this policy takes place. This is fundamentally stripping the right of the individual to be psychologically satisfied and happy with oneself. And at the point in which the state is an institution that should maximize the individual's pursuit of happiness, I don't see why putting instinctual barriers to pursuit of happiness in terms of satisfaction and content should be allowed in their case. Yes?
Right. The government has a huge incentive to make the system efficient, right? When there is more important and efficient source of information such as security camera or the data what you bought, why the government has incentive to search and censor about the bathroom whatsoever?
What? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Okay, I don't understand, but let's talk about something that they said earlier. They said, I don't know, like privacy is not important when there's a 30-minute bomb away, right? That's in that case, but we have to be talking about a place in which you're constantly being watched, irregardless of the action you do, irregardless of whether there's a 30-minute bomb away or not, right? So obviously their case of justifying security over privacy does not stand, especially with the explanation that I've given you. Second level of analysis. We all, as human beings, do petty crime or do something that's illegal once in our life. Because, for example, on my way to ICU today, I ran across about 4 or 5 red lights on the street today. I know that that's illegal, but I also know that if I don't make it on time, I will not be able to debate today. We all have split-second decisions about morality and breaking rules, and especially when it's split-second, you cannot rationally calculate every single factor about what is the better choice. So that's why human beings, like by nature of the fact that we are not perfect robotical beings that can calculate everything like in perfect time, sometimes tend to do petty crime or do something petty, right? To that they said they're not going to catch all crimes, or they're not going to try to stop and search everything that looks like crime, but only in cases when it looks like it's going to actually lead to really serious crime, they're going to catch. That's a concession of saying the government has full authority in choosing when to put down the hands of law, when to punish individuals for something that is deemed to be illegal or something that might lead to illegality. That is akin to what's happening in China right now, when China, as a result of censorship and putting applications in phones of individuals to check the content of their messages, use that to selectively get political dissidents and track them down. In all countries, there is laws against terrorism, so all countries have a potential to exploit that power and to do something similar to China. We're very fearful of the Orwellian world the government is presenting.
Next, I saw the Deputy Prime Minister from government side to continue our case with me. Here.
Okay.
Can you delete that? Mike, I don't want to use a mic, so can you hear me at the back? Okay, thank you. talk about three things in my speech today. Firstly, on what is the attitude and relationship between people in current society and privacy. Secondly, on whether or not a police state is going to happen. And lastly, on the compromise between privacy and security. But before that, to answer the previous speaker's question about what kind of crimes we're looking to prevent and where is the crime that our system uniquely can protect. Let's look at mass shootings, for example. Every time a mass shooting happens, there's this regretful narrative about how there were so many signs and there were so many symptoms that this mass shooting was going to happen, right? This kid has guns in his house. He has access to guns. He has been Googling things about where is the best place or how is the best place to smuggle a gun into school. When is the subway the most crowded so I can plant the bomb in the subway? You know, things like that. That are trends, right? We realize that there's so many regretful narratives in society today, and we're not using the data that we could have collected. And we think, what a waste, because you could have prevented tragic school shootings, you could have prevented things like the sarin attack, you could have prevented all these large crimes that have so much harm on society. That's the kind of crime that we're looking to prevent, right? So that's like larger crimes. And let's move on to like petty crimes. So they talked about chikan, which apparently means molestation. Thank you for helping me with Japanese. But like they said that not everyone who reads manga is going to molest someone, and not everyone that reads manga is going to do something. We agree, right? The kinds of crime that we're looking to stop is a person who reads manga but also recently purchased like date rape drugs, or recently has been Googling things about how is the best way to roofie someone, right? People that portray, the data that you collect is not just like the data, it's like a combination of various types of data that will help you pinpoint with accuracy that this crime is likely to happen. This is the type of scenario that we're hoping to prevent, and we hope they engage us in this debate. Next, let's talk about the relationship of people and their privacy in current day society. If you look at the choices that society is making, the narrative that they're pointing out about how people like value their privacy alone is completely untrue, right? People freely give up their data when they go onto sites like Instagram, when they go onto sites like Facebook. I know there has been a controversy about Facebook and people are leaving Facebook, right? I know, you want to say that in your POI. First of all, the reason why this is news, right, is because even though there has been a lot of news lately, and this is like, super popular topic, you must realize that the majority of users on Facebook are still on Facebook because they don't care. They don't care that a company is using their information to target advertisements. As long as there's a benefit to gain, people in current modern day society are willing to give up their privacy, right? And those people that left Facebook, the reason why they left Facebook is not because their data is being collected. They know their data is being collected. The reason why they left Facebook is because their data is being exploited and sold to a third party. So the problem is not with the collection of data, it's about the exploitation of data. And we don't think using data to solve crimes is any form of exploitation. So yes.
Facebook information is something you write for yourself and you present for yourself. But when you're sitting in the restroom or the bathroom, you don't have autonomy over that. Why can you say that people have the same treatment for these different kinds of information?
Well, Google, for example, searches through your search history, right? And if you search up like dildos, or you search up like best ways to jack yourself off, or like the porn that you like to watch online, right? Google also collects this. That doesn't mean people are abandoning Googles and drills, right? Even private behavior, people recognize in current day society that it's okay for companies to use it. Let me give you a comparison about why people are going to be okay with data on our side. The difference, right? The thing we're asking you to give up is we're asking you to give up your Amazon search history, the list of things you bought on Amazon, in exchange for not having your life being at risk in a bomb attack, in exchange for your safety. And any sane person is going to pick your safety, or like not being molested, right? We think it is a trade-off that current society is okay with, and as long as we deal with their data with confidentiality, like we host it on closed servers, and enough precaution is taken to make sure the data does not leak out and is not exploited, we think it's completely fine. No, thank you. Next. About whether or not this will turn into a police state. The things they said, Big Brother is watching, they're afraid of an Orwellian society. Those are police states. Because what the government does with the data in those kinds of hypothetical situations is that they take the data and they punish the people accordingly. What this means is that the reason why everyone in communist Russia was so paranoid was because any information that was collected about them could be used against them to punish them. That's not what's happening in our policy. We're collecting this data to prevent crime. There is no punitive action that is taken on this individual. If we see that you have the potential to conduct a bomb attack, we're going to intervene in the sense that we're going to send you for counseling, we're going to warn you, or we're going to step in before the crime is committed. There is no punitive action. We have no right to use this data to lock you up in a jail cell or to silence you. So we don't see how this can be exploited by the government to create a police state, and we don't think the large amounts of fear and paranoia that they've been talking about is going to be relevant. Next, what kinds of information is going to be collected, which was their POI, right? So we don't think that the government has an incentive to find out what each and every person is doing in their bedroom, right?
Yeah.
We know as like people who study crime and people that like are academically studying the subject that there are certain indicators that are already established that you need to look at when you prevent crime statistics, right? And how often you are having sex is definitely not one of them, right? And what color your bed sheets are is also not one of them. The government has a limited capacity as to the amount of data and the types of data that they want to process. And we believe that any state government is going to prioritize the information that they're receiving through and use the relevant information. Last, let's talk about the trade-off between privacy and security, which is what my side really wants to drive home today. They completely dismissed the entire idea about the bomb scenario that my first speaker gave you, right? We told you, if the government has the information, has intel, that in 30 seconds a bomb is going to explode in, like, say, central Tokyo, but they don't know where it is, we think they should have the prerogative and they should have the means to access information that is likely to tell them where the bomb is going to happen, right? We don't think that there's any principle that would explain why the government should not have access to the information necessary. Because the information we're talking about is like a specific kind of information that we don't think the individuals are going to care that much about. Last, I want to briefly touch about the benefits to potential criminals, right? We think after conviction, after a criminal is convicted, after he commits a crime, there's a long-term impact on his life because of criminal records, because he goes to jail. And if we can preemptively stop a crime due to like emotions, or we can preemptively prevent him from committing the crime, we reduce the irreversible harm that happens when a person commits the crime. So to potential criminals, this is also a benefit, because ultimately, not only do we reduce the crime rate in general society, we prevent them from making a mistake that they might regret for the rest of their lives because of certain emotions. So for the sake of society, and for the sake of safety, and for the sake of like sane argument, please go with side government.
Next title, DAO from options title, continuous case review. Speaker.
No. 僕になってる。すごい。僕にしたじゃん、いたべ。怖い怖い。そういうこともありますよ。どうします？はい。ボシがやる？これでもいいんですか？逆にどれぐらいの声だったらうるさくないですか？まあ、いつも通りじゃあやります。はい。聞こえますか？はい。
そうです。
Ladies and gentlemen, no matter how much information you collect, as long as people don't commit actual crime, that action is not crime. We say estimation cannot be the legitimate reason for the government to intervene and restrict the individual's freedom, and we rather increase the number of criminals in potential criminals uniquely in their side of the house. That's why we strongly oppose to today's motion. I'm going to basically explain one thing. Why in their side of the house, uniquely potential criminals is increased, and why our side actually can, let individual not to actually commit these kinds of crimes. But before that, let me, back to the other side of the house. But before that, one clarification, right? Then, trying to use, very, impactful example, right? Bombing or mass shooting or those kind of things. But today's battle proof, today's government side has, is not, protect these kinds, prevent these kinds of severe crimes, right? They need to prevent all types of crimes, right? That's why they have the huge burden of proof to say what the specific reason why government is allowed to actually intervene in these circumstances, any individual circumstances, in order to prevent any types of crimes, right? This is the burden of proof today government side by the until the Deputy Prime Minister's speeches. And furthermore, they actually talked about, oh, government has a legitimacy to, use this method or stuff like that. But we believe government actually never has these kinds of legitimacy. Why? Because we believe, preemptive measures shouldn't be taken, especially in case of a criminalization. Why is that so? Because we believe, freedom is often, confronted against, governmental control. That's why we believe, these, we believe, criminalization actually severely restricts and limits individual freedoms, right? That's why we believe, as long as we are talking about, criminalization of some types of action, we have to be specifically careful about decision making about, whether that particular action is crime or not. For example, yes, okay, let's buy a case of example coming from the government side. For example, in the case of bombing or stuff like that, right? I might say, for example, I might frequently say, for example, or criticize current government, or I might say some anti-governmental comments frequently, and now I have, iPhone. This might be the button which can explode the bomb, right? Under that particular circumstance, we couldn't see objectively what kind of actions actually are likely to, cause crimes, right? That's why there must be arbitrary, decision making by the government or supervisors which actually utilize this, this kind of information. That's why we believe, the exploitation of the information must happen, and that cannot be legitimized. Yes. So moving on to my point about why their side of the house potential criminals are likely to be increased. So Marx actually talks about why people cannot always rationally choose their choices, right? But ultimately people are required to make a decision. Then, right? Under that circumstance, what kind of things actually are utilized as a measure to make a decision, right? We believe people basically follow laws not because there is a punishment or that is a law, but because they are actually convinced by that particular law and moral reasonings behind that law, right? We believe these kinds of consent to the existence of that particular law actually controls their actions when they actually are required to make a decision, right? That's we believe some people commit crimes and others do not, right? So for example, if some murderer actually appears and he or she actually tries to kill your lovers, you might prioritize the morality to save your lovers rather than to kill or that particular murderer in order to save your lovers, right? And you might if we are talking about politicians, that politician might prioritize the morality to enrich your country at the expense of committing, for example, bribes or getting bribes or those kind of things, even though they actually know that is against law, right? That's why we believe these kinds of morality or consent to that particular morality which creates law is the things which actually people use when they actually are making a decision. Then why based on this, why the potential criminals are increased in their side of the house. So we believe let's look at the world where this particular mass surveillance is normalized, right? We believe in their side of the house, people might follow law because that is an obligation as citizens, or because there is a surveillance or supervised by the authority, right? This is that exact reason why people follow law in their side of the house. But we believe these kind of things is not necessarily associated with the morality they actually have consented. That's why we believe the people in their side of the house uniquely tend to commit crimes more. Yeah.
If individual decision can justify the crime, do you support the murder if the A has been concluded it is necessary to kill Y?
No, we don't support murder, but what we are supporting here is a law which created through the consent by the majority of the citizens, right? And we are supporting the world where these kind of individuals actually consent to that law and the reasoning behind that law was stuff like that. Then one other side actually is the number of these kind of crimes are decreased comparatively less than their side of the house. In your side of the house, since majority of citizens actually follow the law specifically because they actually have already consented to the morality or the reasonings behind that laws, right? And furthermore, if bombing or shooting is so problematic, we are happy to regulate, for example, the shops where these kinds of items can be sold or stuff like that, right? That's why we in order to prevent these kind of severe crimes, if that is so problematic and the today's government try to protect, then we are happy to introduce these kinds of regulations. We couldn't see the necessity of this specific mass surveillance at the expense of sacrificing individuals, freedoms or stuff like that. That's why we strongly oppose to this motion.
画面 wait from government side to weak opponent will implement here.
Alright, so three things from the government way. Firstly, whether privacy issue is significant honor, and secondly, that we can reduce the time after taking proposal, and thirdly, comparison their harm and our benefit. But before that, two independent debaters to the previous speaker. So they said those kind of government can utilize those information. But the thing is, there's kind of difference, the ownership or the position of those information within the society. For example, the police actually correcting the fingerprint of the criminal in Japan, but the government do not know the exact fingerprint is like that the police actually has. We say there's still difference between the government and the police. They need to explain why the government is so aggressive to enact and leak the data which is the police possess. If the government is so cruel and oppressive, we don't see any difference between this way, right? So for example, like the China already correcting the data that the government actually do. We don't see any difference within this debate. And secondly, the dictated opposition said we have the duty or the burden to feel like all crimes should be there. But yes, as my partner already told you, only even in those kind of minor kind of crimes, we are happy to deal with the situation. Then we told you, right? Those kind of in the minor the crimes, those kind of the way to deal those or prevent the crime won't be so harsh, right? We set the imprisonment of those potential criminal, right? We just warn and we make them calm down. So we don't see any harm of their liberty, as they told you. We don't see any harm of doing this, right? So that's why that kind of explanation cannot be a reason to oppose this motion. So yeah, right.
BDSM is illegal, so you're not only prevented from buying, sex toys, but you're also preventing from walking near sex toys or anything when you get the chilling effect that you explained. Why can you say that you can only prevent actions that are necessarily going to lead to a crime, when obviously, as human beings, other things that are not criminal can also might lead to it?
Sorry, I don't understand why the chilling effect actually happened, because even if you recognize a potential criminal, you just will be warned by the police and you cannot be doing that. So you can just say, I do not intend to do it. Yeah, that's simple, right? You don't see any harm of those scenarios. To move on. Whether privacy issue has a significant impact on it. Sorry, can I win the clock? The scenario coming from the outside of the house, they might censor the kind of bedroom whatsoever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not talking about entire surveillance, right? We are talking about mass surveillance. They need to prove why the government has a capacity or incentive to censor the monitor in those kind of areas, which is not so important to prevent the crime, right? My partner already told you there's kind of scarcity of the resources within the government. We don't see any kind of the incentive to censor those areas because it is irrelevant to the possibility of the crime. So that's why, though in the general scenario coming from the outside of the house, it's quite illegitimate and they not really fulfill the burden why those situation is likely to happen. We don't see any likelihood of their harm. And secondly, also, they said humans have the intuitive sense to feel fear to be censored the scene. But the thing is, if we can, it might be true in his intuitive sense, but we need to say this different from person to person in order to make it persuasive. We need to use more kind of exact examples of kind of the picturization, how actually citizens respond to the erosion of the privacy or information or personal information. That's why the clarification of the current context, my partner, is significantly important. We don't see a huge kind of the regressions on the Facebook, right? We don't see the vast majority does not really care about the privacy issue. And more important, and also let me put the example another one. So in India, there's a kind of adult system. You need to set the fingerprint, but instead of that information, you can get the welfare, you can get the bank account whatsoever. Because you can get some kind of the benefit instead of your own personal information, we see no the kind of particular criticism to that system. Actually, vast majority of the Indian citizens are satisfied with that erosion of your personal information. We say the citizens are not really care about the privacy issue. It's not so significant. That's a realistic scenario within this debate. No, sorry. So move on to my second point. So whether we can reduce the crime or not. The thing coming from their side of the house is like, because they are convinced to the definition or the moral background of the crime, that's why they would be deterred to commit a crime. Alright, we can see, but we don't understand why those kind of the legitimacy or moral background of the crime would be vanished within our side of the house. We have the certain kind of criteria of the arresting and imprisonment. Only we can actually punish those people only when they actually committed a crime. And before they commit the crime, we just warn them and we suggest them to go to the mental clinic whatsoever. We don't understand any reason why we lose the moral background or legitimacy of the rule system after taking proposal. That's why many substances coming from the dictatorial opposition is not really important within this debate. And also he said, if there's a problem of the gun shooting, we are happy to ban the gun. Alright, it can be taken, but the thing is that it's not the only kind of the source of the crime, right? For example, when it comes to the murderer, the knife or the other kind of the ordinary commodities can be a weapon to kill somebody else. And also when it comes to the bombing, you can get the material of the bombing and you can create it even without the already established bomb, right? So that's why even you can, for example, ban the gun. It's not really, it's not efficient, it's not sufficient to prevent the crime to begin with. We told you there's a massive amount of the signs that we can correct and also we can utilize to prevent the crime. That's why no matter how you said, they said there's the deterrent, there's kind of the other solution, it's not enough. We say that this motion exclusively provide the benefits within the society. So lastly, we want the comparison of our benefit and of their benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, we might feel like we're kind of stressed when we watched by the government. But the thing is, we see the more important harm of you, right? You need to be secure when you walk the law. You need to be secure and not to murder from others. We say those kind of the things is more important than the dubious, a little bit, tiny fear to be watched. We say in those comparisons, our benefit is more important to the outside of the house. Back to you first.
Thank you for your speech. Next, I call opposition whip for your speech in the here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the point of information that I asked to the Prime Minister was very crucial. The question was that are you going to catch those individuals, or are you going to, as a police, go talk to those individuals if they are like drunk, or like if they are just holding an iPhone or something on there. Like they are just doing essentially the same thing. They are just saying that we are going to have automatic consultation with these kind of people, which is just something that we should not be doing. In the sense that they oppose that. They say that no, we are not going to do that. But this is what they are essentially doing. This is giving too much power to the state, and also it doesn't help anything in order to prevent crime. At the moment, they said like they're just going to like do counseling. That is just a soft stance, and this doesn't solve anything. This is what I'm going to tell you. Three things from the opposition bill. Firstly, which side of the house can have less crime and damage and less damage of the crime? Secondly, why is policy not legitimate as a state? It is not legitimate as a state to increase on people's rights even if they can catch more criminals on their side of the house. Thirdly, how will government abuse this system to consolidate its power? So firstly, which side of the house can have less crimes? So what they said is like this, right? Well, they are like bomb threats or they are mass shootings. So we have to stop it from the warning side of those kind of things. And the point here is that they are just not going to catch, but the thing what they are going to do is that do counseling. How effective is this kind of counseling if you are not going to take away this kind of bomb, if you are not going to take away this kind of guns? You can't do that on their side of the house. If that person truly believes that bomb in this country is true, then counseling wouldn't work. It doesn't do anything, right? They have no solution on their side of the house, which is why they already failed in this debate. But more than that, even if this is possible, the thing is, you don't know where the bomb is when these kind of accidents happen. When we don't know where the gun is when these kind of accidents happen. Criminals will be smart too. Like they will do those projects faster on their side of the house, so that they can go through the surveillance and those kind of things, which means that they and also the person does not put bomb in a box that is labeled bomb. It is really hard to identify, given that it is extremely hard to identify these kind of things in the first place and minimize the damage. And this is a crucial point, that it is hard to identify. So the police incentive is, what they are going to do is like they are just going to start investigation for all of these kind of shady things, like the black kids holding something on the phone which has led to that kid shooten down by the police officer because he was told that he is not respected enough. Right? These kind of things is what they are standing for, and police should do that, right? Because they think that this is the right thing to do. When that is not, this is too much prevention, and we don't think that this is good. In the sense that the society is becoming more sensitive to this kind of issue. The call for gun control is happening more and more. Walmart has to stop selling guns to the minors, and we are seeing this kind of progress happening again and again. We think that continuation of this kind of thing is the way to go on this issue. But in the sense that we have told you from Deputy Prime Minister that on our side of the house the crimes are less. Why is that so? Because on our side, because we are the ones that have analyzed when people commit crime from DLO, right? It's not a practical calculation about whether it is good to commit crime or not. It is impossible because it happens in a split second, or it is just so big, the consequence is so big that you can't, no thank you. See, the other is the morality that is going to bound you, in a sense that you agree to self-sacrifice for the sake of morality. This kind of morality and the sense of self-sacrifice is vastly lost when you see government as your enemies, in a sense that we in the society the law works because we want to obey by the law because we think that the state is doing something good. They will be always the savior for you in the sense that the society is good. But when this kind of policy is happen, when your bathrooms is always looked at, when you're having sex, when you are always looked at, the antipathy towards the state is going to be magnificent to the extent that they don't want to follow the rule imposed by the state. They don't want to do that, right? So there will be more people want wanting to commit crimes, there will be less deterrence when in the split second of decision on this kind of thing. They will think that, oh, but this is the state, right? I hate state. Who would give a shit about this law? This is what happens on their side of the house. No reputation whatsoever from the government with reply is too late, right? Therefore, we reduce the crime. We on our side of the house, the damage of the crimes are less. This is a tangible benefit that we can both agree on. Secondly, it is legitimate policy, right? So the contention, so what we have argued is that there is a right of autonomy that includes the right to showing your identity. Yes.
Here's your rebuttal. The reason why people are still going to have their morality reflected in laws is because laws are drafted based on people's opinions, right? People vote politicians in to make laws that they agree with. The laws are not going to change.
That is just theoretical. I have never voted for the law that says I didn't kill a murderer. This kind of thing never happened. It is just morality that is controlling me. This is just vastly different thing, right? So secondly, about legitimacy of this policy, right? They talked about how the right of privacy is not important because we search about dicks and those kind of things. But what they miss is we are only giving up information that we are okay with. When the government is deciding this is something that is different, and they are just making a blind assumption on how the public doesn't care about it, when the Mark Zuckerberg case was so much of a society's issue, they just fail on this point. So the thing is, even if they can catch this kind of thing, we have to respect right of autonomy, right to feel secure. Because why is that? Because it is a state failure that they are addressing. In a sense, the state had to do more. The state had to implement gun control. The state had to have more police officers in the street. They are essentially pushing this burden the state has into their citizens. Isn't it right, Mr. Speaker? Right? This is the kind of thing that is implementation of this kind of extra harm that is for the state's duty. The state had to do it, but they are just outsourcing it without any legitimacy. This is something that is illegitimate imposition under control by the state when we have the right of our life. This is something that we can't allow. Thirdly, I didn't have time, so government. But we were so certain about that Matt have talked to you about this. Yeah. The government always have incentive to consolidate its power. They are likely to abuse the system. There's nobody surveilling the state. Yeah. This is why we think that this kind of thing is going to happen. They never solve anything on one side. Huge problem. That is injustice on the other side of the house. Stop this thing. Thank you.
11番で、ほいほいほいほい。
Many things in my speech. Firstly, I'll be talking about does crime really go down, or what happens to crime in both paradigms. Secondly, I'll be talking about the point of privacy. Is it so unnecessary that people give it away, it's not important in this space? Or is it a fundamental part of humanity that we have the right to privacy? Thirdly, I'll be talking about the power of the state and to abuse that power. Lastly, I'll be comparing whether privacy to the security assuming that the security argument stands on their side of the house. So they told us, quickly speaking, without including any of the rebuttals given to you by my two fabulous speakers, first two speakers says, we can prevent crime by educating them and stuff like that. And then the whip came up and said, there is no chilling effect. There is no effect in which people's mindsets and calculus is not changed as a result of this. How are they going to not do crime if you don't change their mindsets, right? And assuming you do send them to education, they haven't really shown us why that works. They haven't shown us extreme cases. Terrorists don't change overnight if you give them education. Seriously, let's talk about the facts. right? So basically, they haven't really shown us why that's the case. On our side of the house, we gave you an analysis of the psyche of the individual. That is to say, at the point in which you become a psychological slave of authority, you foster not respect, but resentment for those who are the puppet masters. At the point in which you don't feel that you should be giving all of this privacy away for the sake of one small benefit, you feel that you are being treated unfairly by the state, right? That's why people are fine when the police ask you for your fingerprints, because they know to what extent that is going to be helpful to their society. In this case, citizens don't get a choice of to what extent they give away their information, to what extent they don't. Therefore, they cannot have that choice to say, I respect the government, and therefore I will give this information. There's only going to be resentment, and if they can't have the chilling effect, probably crime is going to happen. Second level of analysis, let's talk about privacy. I'm going to really wrap this up real quick. They said it's not important about, with giving information about the Indian police system and Facebook. There are all cases in which you opt into giving that information, and there are all cases in which you give limited information, limited by how much these individuals want to give information. They can't do that on their side of the house, and we talked to you about why that overreach is something that is so fundamentally important to the individual, at the point in which you deprive the agency of the individuals to present oneself, and the instinctual fear that you have when you're constantly being looked at. Thirdly, let's talk about the government overreach and stuff like that. They said it's not going to happen, but they also say government has limited capacity, and they also conceded that people will be choosing when to intervene and when not to intervene. If you're understaffed and you need to make a decision about when to intervene and when not to intervene, that is the same exact mechanism that creates police violence against blacks, because they're limited in resources and they have to make decisions based on the data that they have, and they go for the people who, like blacks, commit crime according to the police that do police brutality, something like that. That is going to happen precisely because the subjectivity of choice of when to intervene and when not to intervene is left to authority, right? It doesn't matter if the police and government is not tied together by some sort of magical bond. Authority has the subjective power to change to that. Even if we put that aside, even if we understand that security is something important, they miss the point. Why? Because they gave us examples about how we need to stop mass murders, and we do that by, according to them, looking at history records of, I don't know, whether you purchased a bomb or not. They need to defend on their side of the house an Orwellian future in which you are looked at in the bathroom when you're looked at when you're having sex. I can consent when I get scanned in the airport when I need to go get on a plane, because I know that in a pressure where there might be a terrorist attack on a plane, I can opt into that security. But I can't opt into, I don't know, me and my girlfriend having sex and the police looking at that just for me to get on the flight to Hong Kong, right? I don't get that. There is no justification as to why security can override the privacy in the specific circumstance that they need to explain. Please don't look at me having sex while I get on the airplane.
Thank you for your speech. Lastly, Power Enterprise. Here.
这个我想是原因。Oh yeah. So 7-minute speech.
买呀，加油！
to summarize this debate by talking about the harm to potential criminals that happens on both sides and the harm to society that happens to both sides. But before that, a few clarifications, right? So first of all, we think that their side completely misunderstood the motion, right? In two different ways. The first way is that they did not read the policy, right? They did not read the motion in terms of they did not read the phrasing, fully accurate data. Right? So the circumstances they were talking about are like stop and search, where you have a preference to search Hispanics or you have a preference to search blacks, right? That was not the situation that we wanted to debate about, and that was not the situation that this debate should have been about. We're talking about fully accurate data, right? Data such as things like blacks have a tendency to commit more crime, or people holding an iPhone might explode, are not fully accurate enough to say that a crime is going to be committed, right? So it's not these trends and biases that we're using. We're using more concrete and more accurate data, and that was what this debate was about. Second thing they didn't misunderstood was that this debate was about law enforcement agencies, right? So there was a leap of logic from how the data would pass from law enforcement agencies into the hands of politicians and people that want to push down dissent they want to crack down on descendants of people that are acting against the government, right? So we don't think that their cases stand in the context of today's debate. Second, let's talk about the harm to potential criminals and the harm to society. So what was the harm to potential criminals on their side? So their side came up with the idea that there is a harm because the increase in potential criminals on our side of the house, there's going to be an increase in the number of potential criminals. We don't see what's wrong with that, right? Precisely because the only thing increasing is the number of potential criminals, and they stay as potential criminals. We think this is beneficial, right? Because these potential criminals never become actual criminals. So these crimes don't actually get committed, so that protects society from the crimes, and this also protects the criminals, my very short substantive, from going to jail and from disrupting their lives through a decision that would be regrettable, right? So we think there is no harm to potential criminals on their side of the house. Second, let's talk about harm to society. So opposition talked about like the fear and the guilt and the shame, right? But it's this kind of alarmist rhetoric that is preventing tech from being able to innovate, right? It's this kind of alarmist rhetoric that is saying like immediately when the government collects information, we're going to become a police state, and anyone that says anything against the government is going to get arrested. Like it's this kind of logic that is like very, it's intuitive, but it's also like very not logical if you think about it, right? We think that in society, the context that we were trying to paint to you is that people are moving towards prioritizing privacy less, right? That people are okay with giving up their privacy in exchange for other things, like their safety in this case, or like in the case of Facebook, the use of a service, right? And they also came up with this dubious harm about how like our society is going to have laws that people don't agree with. Right? I tried to correct that in my point of information. I told you that laws are always going to reflect the points of views of citizens and always going to be in line with the morality of citizens, because people vote in politicians that they support to make the laws that they're going to support, right? So they said, oh no, I never vote in a politician I never vote in a politician that's going to make a specific policy. Oh, that's ridiculous, right? You vote in politicians that support like gay marriage because you want them to make laws that are going to support gay marriage, right? So there's no way the system of making laws and the system of laws affecting morality is going to stand on their side of the house. So their entire case about how crime rates are going to go up because people miraculously don't agree with laws anymore doesn't stand, right? On the other hand, you had government, where we told you we want to make use of data. We think there is an abundance of data. That was what this debate was supposed to be about. There is an abundance of data. Every time a crime is committed, people backtrack, and in retrospect they say, oh, we should have spotted all these trends. We should have used all these trends. We want to prevent this regretful narrative of all this data, of all this potential of finding this criminal, stopping this criminal from going to waste, right? And we also never said that the only intervention we were going to do was counseling, right? We told you that in the event that the warning that a person has committed the same thing multiple times, right, that we would make counseling mandatory, that we would take more drastic action. So we think that our side is the side that better protects society and security. For these reasons, they're very proud to be